I'm Billy Carter, and for 30 years I worked as a police officer for the city of Choctaw. Since I retired as chief of police from Choctaw, I have helped police departments throughout Oklahoma in my job with OMAG. I know firsthand that officers have a very tough and unpredictable job. I've done every part of your job, and I've experienced what you experience. I know how dangerous it can be, responding to calls such as armed robberies, domestics, fights in progress, and one of the worst calls to get is officer down or needs assistance. Once you get to a call, it's your job to have control of that call and the outcome. One of the problems is that some of the calls can get out of control and frankly bad things can happen. For example, worst case scenario, you're involved in an officer-involved shooting. One of the things I've experienced is officers responding to a call at a high rate of speed and not making it to the call because of being involved in an accident. I think we can all agree that there are some aspects of our job that may be out of our control, but the one thing we have control of is how we drive our cars. It is your choice how fast you drive, taking that curve, or entering an intersection, or driving into oncoming traffic. Those are your choices. You have control over that. You can choose a safer response by reducing your speed and making sure you arrive at the call. Already, in 2 months period, we have seen 12 police cruiser-involved accident claims compared to 1 incident involving 2 officers in a shooting. That in itself should tell you how dangerous it is while responding to calls. The fact is, if you're responding to a call and never make it there because of an accident, then you are absolutely no good to anyone. And if you injure a member of the public with your police cruiser, you can be included in a liability lawsuit. I care about your safety. I want you to do the best job you can, but in the safest way. The point of chasing the bad guy is to protect the public, and if you injure a member of the public while chasing the suspect, then you've failed the basic idea of protecting the public from harm. At the end of the day, I want you and everyone you are sworn to protect to get home to your families every night. And that's why OMAG is producing this video. Statistics show that more officers die in auto-related accidents than any other means. There's an old saying that speed kills. The faster you drive, the more likely it is that you will be involved in a serious accident. Why do we speed? Because we can. But is that a good reason? Gordon Graham, who is a national expert in risk management, says, if it's predictable, then it's preventable. Your safety is our concern. The protection of our citizens depends on the enforcement of our laws in which it was based. The course of enforcing these laws, municipalities can be held liable for the way we operate emergency vehicles. This video program is intended to assist cities and towns by offering some legal guidance for the way in which officers respond in both non-emergency and emergency situations. Enforcement of safe driving is the elephant in the room at most discussions about injury and fatal traffic collisions involving officers. As officers, we are professional enforcers. However, there is strong resistance in most agencies to enforcing safe driving standards on officers, and even stronger resistance to identifying officer errors after a fatal collision. Although there is no overarching regulatory body that reviews officer-involved collisions, chiefs can and should create internal review processes. Chiefs have many opportunities to improve safe driving in their agencies, providing comprehensive skill and policy training, prioritizing safety over response time, carefully managing fatigue and distraction, and consistently communicating and demonstrating expectations from the chief down through supervision will give officers the framework they need to perform their best. Law enforcement agency cultures oriented towards safe driving and accountability will save lives and reduce costs while simultaneously enhancing the law enforcement profession nationwide. Driving an emergency vehicle is one of the most dangerous parts of your job. Officers must ensure that they educate themselves on current laws, but above all, drive in a manner that is not dangerous, negligent, or reckless. Officers can be held liable in some cases, but need to understand that their lives and the lives of all others are at stake every time they are responding to a call. Traffic collisions take more lives and end more careers for law enforcement officers than any other event. The surprising reality is that the greatest threat officers face today is their own patrol vehicles. Ultimately, safe driving is the agent's responsibility. Chiefs have the enormous task of maintaining a safe working environment for their officers and the people in their community. The good news is that training does reduce collisions. Education is often incomplete and occasionally inadequate. To be complete, driving education needs to address both skills and decision making. This means that an officer must develop the ability to operate a vehicle under emergency conditions and, equally important, learn when and when not to drive under emergency conditions. Chiefs must ensure that officers are taught agency policy and expectations and that supervisors consistently reinforce these. To be adequate, law enforcement driving education needs to address all areas officers are expected to encounter: high speed, night driving, traffic, pursuit, calls for backup, and so on. This may seem obvious, but too many examples show this is a problem. Vehicle operations is not only the most dangerous part of your daily activity for your personal safety, it also exposes you to legal liability in how you operate your vehicle and the threat it poses to the public. Title 47, Section 11-106 grants you, as the driver of an authorized emergency vehicle, certain privileges which you may exercise when responding to either an emergency call or when you are in pursuit of a suspected violator of the law. These privileges include being able to park or stand your unit in a location or manner which would normally be contrary to Title 47. The privilege also extends to proceeding past a red light or a stop sign after slowing down as may be necessary for safe operation. The most commonly used privilege is the ability to exceed the speed limit so long as you are not endangering life or property. The privilege extends to disregarding regulations governing direction of movement. Finally, the privilege extends to disregarding turning regulations. The statute also provides that you can speed and disregard turning restrictions without using lights and sirens under certain very narrow circumstances, and only applies if your actions do not endanger life or property. To utilize this extended privilege, you must have probable cause to believe that if the suspect knew of your presence, they would either destroy evidence, end a continuing felony before you have sufficient evidence to establish grounds for arrest, or evade apprehension or identification. The privilege also applies when you have probable cause to believe that because of traffic conditions, there would be an increased potential for a collision if you activated your lights and sirens, given the public's response to those signals. This narrow exception does not apply when you are in pursuit of a suspect who is eluding or attempting to elude you. These privileges are not absolute. They do not relieve you of your duty to drive with due regard for the safety of others and do not protect you from the consequences of driving with reckless disregard for the safety of the public. Prior to 2010, it was not clear how liability would be imposed for injuries resulting from officers' use of these statutory privileges.
The Oklahoma Supreme Court resolved that issue in State v. Gurich. In that case, the Highway Patrol was pursuing a suspect, and the pursuit ended when the suspect collided with an innocent third party's car, resulting in a death to a passenger in that third party's car. The suspect was convicted of manslaughter, but the family of the deceased sought to recover damages from the state, alleging that the Highway Patrol was negligent in pursuing the suspect. In a normal car accident, the legal standard for liability is negligence. Negligence is a claim where the injured party alleges that they were injured due to your breach of a duty of care. Oftentimes, this involves an allegation that you were violating the rules of the road. Since Section 11-106 grants officers the privilege to disregard certain rules of the road under certain circumstances, the issue was whether the negligence standard applied or whether some other standard should apply. The court ruled that the negligence standard does not apply to cases where officers are properly utilizing the privileges found in Section 11-106. It is important to note that Gurich only applies to pursuits under the conditions outlined in Section 11-106. All other traffic accidents involving officers will be judged using the negligence standard. The court ruled that the standard to be used in assessing civil liability for damages resulting from a lawful police pursuit was the standard outlined in the statute: reckless disregard for life or property in the decision to either initiate the pursuit or the decision to continue the pursuit. This standard is extremely high and requires a showing that the officer's decision was unreasonable under the circumstances and that there was a high probability that the decision to initiate or continue the pursuit would cause serious harm to another person. Your duty to apprehend that suspect is not greater than your duty to protect the public.
We pursue and arrest suspects to protect the public. When that pursuit endangers the public, we need to shut it down. And that's a decision that has to be made ahead of time through policy and training.
A good policy can protect you and your agency, but simply complying with a bad policy will not shield you from liability. The same day the court handed down Gurich, it handed down an opinion in the similar case of Ray versus Broken Arrow. Ray clarifies our understanding of Gurich by holding that simply complying with departmental policy won't shield the agency from liability if its officers recklessly disregarded the risk to the public. This is why it is crucial to have a well-written and up-to-date pursuit policy that officers are trained on, because simply following policy is not a defense if it's a bad policy that puts the public at risk.
After Gurich, we all questioned whether the suspect could sue officers or the city for injuries they sustained during a pursuit.
That question was answered in 2014 in Smith versus City of Stillwater. The court clarified Gurich, holding that your duty was to ensure that you did not recklessly disregard the risk to the public, not to the suspect.
Every pursuit is dangerous and could result in injuries. Officers must consider at all times when initiating a pursuit if there is a strong chance that a third party could be injured or killed as a result of the pursuit. These risks can be controlled and eliminated through training and strong pursuit policies. Officers should always consider whether reducing speed to a call is a safer response. Knowing your abilities and limitations influence the outcome of an emergency response. Actions taken by a law enforcement driver have an impact on the general public and create liability, but more importantly, your actions can impact you and your family. The following pursuit took place in 2007 and highlights many of the topics we have discussed. The pursuit was initiated following a controlled buy from a local known suspect. You will see the officers exercise many of the privileges we have discussed and the consequences from the decisions to exercise those privileges.
Van Buren from I'm Officer Dwayne Andrews, and I was driving that car. I survived, but not without cost. That accident is something I live with every day now. I was on my way to teach a DARE class when I became involved in the pursuit. Many of the kids that were on that bus were former DARE students that I taught. The realization that my response in that chase could have seriously injured or killed myself or someone else has become a permanent part of the equipment that I carry every day. It's very important that we continue to protect the citizens of our communities. It is more important that we not endanger those same citizens due to our actions. This incident ended miraculously with just a few bumps and bruises. It could have been very different. My children could be growing up without a father, and parents could be aging without their children. I thought I was doing the right thing. I did not take a full account of the situation around me. I saw other traffic around the intersection, but did not see the bus approaching. Being aware of your surroundings is a base skill we are taught. Unfortunately, sometimes we are so involved in doing our job, we forget there are other people that can be affected by our zeal. Please don't put yourself in that position. Consider whether that pursuit and that apprehension is worth the risk.
Remember, avoiding liability is not a matter of luck, it's a matter of practice. Feel free to contact OMAG's law enforcement specialist via phone, email, or through our website.